Live by Live has all of your favorite music, and you can listen for free. Whether you hit play on one of our hundreds of curated music stations or create your own custom artist radio station, you'll find the music you love on Live by Live. Visit livexlive.com or search LiveX Live in the App Store or Google Play and listen for free now.
Hi, this is Jenna.
And this is Kelly.
And you're listening to ODFM.
This episode is One Decapitation from Murder. Decapitation.
I'm impressed you found a decapitation one.
There's so much decapitation in this one, too.
Oh, it's
a lot.
Multiple.
A lot.
I shouldn't be excited about that. That's probably wrong.
I know, but it's such a good story, and I'm sure you've kind of heard of it. I had, but I didn't know all the different details, and so I was like, I gotta look into this to pull everything together. The more I looked, of course, like you said, the rabbit hole you get put in. And
yeah. Oh, all right. Lay it on me. Let's hear this.
Okay, so this is one of those that has a gruesome alert, which, of course, with the name Decapitation, it's going to be a little gruesome.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah.
Yeah,
the warning is in the name. You know, if you're going to listen to this episode and suddenly feel like, ooh, that's too much, you know.
Yeah. Well, you were warned before the warning.
Right.
Yeah, or you didn't read between the lines of the obvious lines.
Here's your second warning.
Okay, so this is in Cleveland, Ohio in the mid to late 1930s. Did we do a Cleveland one or an Ohio one yet? I don't know. Well, maybe.
The one with the little boy and his dad.
Oh,
he was Ohio.
Doctor.
Oh, but then, yes, one doctor.
Yeah.
Doctor? Yeah.
It was
going to
be Dr. Drippy Dick. Per Sadie.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. But then I think it moved over to Pennsylvania. But still, we haven't had a lot of
We haven't had a lot of Ohio, so this one it's a big one. So it's in the mid to late 1930s, and it's the beginning of a boom, even though it's during the Great Depression. But Cleveland is starting to boom. I know. Cleveland.
Oh.
Not with bombings, but with booming. So people in Cleveland were starting to pull themselves out of the ashes of the Great Depression, and the population's growing with a melting pot of laborers needed for all the manufacturing of steel in the area. So since they're kind of close to Pennsylvania. Okay.
And, there's probably population growth because, when there's the Great Depression and people have money to go out, what else are you going to do but stay home and...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. At the time, it was the 6th biggest city in the U.S., which I had no idea. It dubbed itself the City of Conventions. Wow.
Okay.
Yay. I'm so glad we're the City of Conventions. But they were boasting a new Union train station, so it was all fancy, all new, tons of fancy new hotels, and a state-of-the-art auditorium for all these conventions.
For the conventions. They hosted the first Comic-Con. Oh, no.
Yeah. Oh. I was like, suddenly they're cool. What?
Right, yeah.
Okay, but however, even though the city was coming into its own financially, there was a deadly monster rapidly approaching.
Yikes.
Yeah. So southeast of the Cuyahoga River that spills through Cleveland is Kingsbury Run, known as The Run. I was like, don't get the runs, but go to the Run.
Nice.
So Kingsbury Run, it's a prehistoric dried up riverbed that runs through the area, and it's crisscrossed by railroad tracks. So
okay. There's a dried up river and some railroad tracks. It sounds
lovely, right?
Really nice.
Lovely. And it's just like what it sounds.
Scenic.
So no, it sounds just like what it sounded like. Or back then in the 30s, it was dark and oppressive. Not to mention dangerous. You can imagine. Right? Okay, so not everyone had yet escaped depression, and those who were destitute lived here in the Run. Fun. Ugh. So the conditions were horrific and disgusting, covered in trash and human filth. Fun.
So it is a river of the runs.
Yeah. The runs. Instead of a river runs through it, a river...
The runs
of the river. Yeah.
Ew. God, I'm grossed out. We haven't even gotten any decapitations. Ew.
It's just poopy. The homeless, referred to as hobos at the time, which reminds me of Wreck-It Ralph when Are you a hobo, Penelope?
Oh my gosh, I just keep thinking of like Tom and Jerry and stuff, and I never thought of a hobo as a bad thing. It was just like,
it was just
I had no idea.
These guys that were on the trains, right?
Yeah, with their stuff on a stick.
Oh my God, totally.
Right? Wrapped in a handkerchief. And I was just like, that's a convenient way to carry your things. I don't know.
That looks fun. So yeah, these hobos lived in the run, which was called Hobo Jungle by the locals. I mean, it just keeps getting better. I know. God. So the hobos that lived there, they often hopped train cars to escape the freezing winters or to try their luck elsewhere, which, yeah, maybe they had their sticks with their handkerchiefs. But
right.
Also, is this still possible? Because, I should start riding rails to get away from the cold too, but I'd probably end up in Alaska. So I guess that's not happening.
Well, you'd have a cell phone, so you'd have like a GPS, and you'd be like, "Oh, I'm heading the wrong direction.
Oh shit, I'm going north." Yeah,
right.
Better run.
Not like them that like they like hop on and go to sleep and wake up and go, "Oh crap, snow."
Shit, wrong way. So, just east of Kingsbury Run is an area known as the Roaring Third. So,
none of this sounds good. I have yet to hear anything good.
It was popular for its bars, brothels, flop houses, which I had to look up. That means they're super cheap hotels, and gambling dens. So this is the place to be.
Glassy spot. Oh my God, it just keeps getting better.
Yeah, place to go if you want to stir up some trouble. Shockingly, this area became super dangerous and would soon see its unfair share of brutal killings.
Again, shocked to my
shock. Where are you going to go if you can't go to the Run or the Roaring Third?
A flop house?
A flop house in the Roaring Third. In September of 1934, a young man on the edge of Lake Erie comes across the lower half of a woman's torso with the thighs still attached, but the legs amputated at the knees, which had washed up on shore. So he's just getting a
So like belly button to knee?
Yeah.
Oh. Oh.
Would you be able to even tell? Oh, I don't know what it is.
That's strange. I mean,
totally.
That's not how Dexter would do it. I mean, he would cut off the legs,
right at the hips,
and then there would be a torso. You wouldn't cut the middle. Interesting.
Yeah,
obviously this was pre-Dexter.
Sure.
Interesting place to
make a
divide
cut.
Up.
Keep the thighs on there. So during examination, the coroner discovered some sort of chemical preservative on the skin of the body, which had made it red and leathery.
What?
Creepy. So authorities go around, they're searching the area where the body was found for more remains, and they did find a few more body parts, but never the head.
Oh.
Yeah, head's gone somewhere. So they didn't have many resources to identify the woman back then, but they were able to determine that she was in her 30s, and she became known as Lady of the Lake, and later Victim Zero, once they figured out she was related to further murders that come on later. So
how do you have Victim Zero?
I know, it's because
how numbers work. This
is the pre-victim to the victims.
They just didn't want to go through the work of reordering the numbers, and they're just like, no, I don't want to do that.
Exactly.
That's require, we already some whiteout and shit, and I don't want to.
We already claimed victim 1, so we better. What do you do? -1.
Zero. Wow, way to make her not count, man.
Yeah, really. A year later, in September of 1935, 2 teen boys stumble upon their own little awful discovery at the bottom of dun 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 Jackass Hill.
You're making that up.
No. There's the runs, there's the Roaring Third, there's Jackass Hill.
Who named this shit?
I don't know. Somebody either with a really fierce sense of humor or a jackass.
Jackass Hill. The funny thing is I wasn't allowed to say ass when I was a teenager, in front of my mom. So she'd be like, well, where were you? I was at that place I'm not allowed to say. I can't.
Jackbutt Hill.
Jackbutt Hill. It's if we were watching Schitt's Creek. Gavin didn't want to get in trouble, so he'd be like, you know that show, Mom, that Poops Creek that you watch?
Oh my God. That's hilarious.
That sounds terrible.
That is awesome.
Oh, okay.
Oh, what a good son. Okay, so they didn't find a jackass, but they did find a body, which had been decapitated with the man bits removed.
So this time it was a male.
This time it was dude.
And the the bits and pieces were gone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. So the body was completely naked except for socks.
Well, we wouldn't want his feet to get cold.
We don't want to show his delicate toes. Yikes. But the other weird thing, it was totally clean and all the blood had been drained. Ooh, I know. Rope burns were visible on the wrists, and because the hands were present, fingerprints were able to be taken.
Ooh, okay.
So they were able to identify him as Edward Andrassy. He's a 28-year-old white man with an arrest record, so that's why they had his fingerprints.
Fingerprints, okay.
And he was weirdly known to frequent the Roaring Third area.
I am so surprised.
No head right then. But during their search of the area, police discovered another body, also decapitated and demanned.
Oh, boy.
That's my own word.
Wow.
I like it better than emasculated because demand sounds even better.
That's a different episode. Demand.
Oh, it is.
One demand from murder.
Well, it could be. We'll totally have another way to use demand. Okay, so this body was also covered in the same chemical preservative as the Lady of the Lake. What are they trying to do? I don't know. So it was determined this body was that of a 44-year-old white man and had been dead for at least 2 weeks. And he couldn't be identified with no head.
Oh.
Ugh.
What the hell?
I would not be wanting to hang around these places or go for walks along
the
beach there.
It's never a mannequin.
No,
it's never just a bag of trash.
No, just don't open it. I'm always afraid to. You see the bags of trash along the roadside. I'm like, nope. Driving.
If I see a shoe on the side of the road, I'm like, please don't let there be a foot in there. Please don't let there be a foot.
No. Ugh, like off of Canada where they kept finding feet in shoes that were washing up. Yeah, I need to read and see if there's been any more developments on that. Oof. A few months later, in January of 1936, a woman walking alongside a manufacturing building came across a sickening sight. This one. Whew. So in 2 half-bushel baskets. So those are like what corn comes in, those kind of wooden baskets.
Yeah.
About half of a female's body parts were neatly wrapped in newspaper and placed in the basket. Little presents. Here's your little presents.
Oh.
Come dig through these baskets. What? Why? I don't know. It was like they were being presented as gifts almost because they were wrapped. The rest of the body, though, except for the head, was found 10 days later in a vacant lot nearby. The cause of death was determined to be, wait for it, decapitation. I was like, of course it was. What? I don't know.
Wow. I'm just picturing a shelf of heads somewhere.
I know. Somebody's keeping all these heads. Or what are they doing with them?
In a jar.
Oh, like The Walking Dead.
Yes!
During autopsy, it was determined that the killer had waited until after rigor mortis had set in to cut off the other body parts. I'm not sure how they know that, but somehow they knew it.
Yeah, interesting.
Through fingerprints, the victim was identified as Florence Polillo, who was a waitress, barmaid, and prostitute.
Wow, 3 jobs.
She was working hard. At the time of her death, she had lived right at the edge of the Roaring Third, which was probably convenient for all her professions.
Right.
She could go from one place to the next all through day to night, morning to night. Yeah.
That's when women used to use those day to night things. Like, how do you take this outfit from day to night? I've never had to do that personally, but apparently.
That's genius. Just add some pumps and you're ready to roll. So then in June of 1936, in the early morning on Kingsbury Run, 2 boys find a pair of trousers. They're like, oh, what are these? There's something in them, huh?
Oh, Jesus.
It was a head. There's a head in there. So there's a head. They found a head. They did find a head.
Tell me it didn't match any of the bodies that didn't have heads.
It did not. But the next day, the police came upon the body of a man in his early 20s who did belong to the head.
Oh, okay, good. I'm just picturing them going, no. Let's try. No.
Doesn't line up. No. Oh, this one's a match. So...
like when you're trying to force a puzzle piece to go
just
together, and you're like,
They're
I swear it goes. It goes.
No,
like,
that neck is too small.
Those colors don't line up. Right?
No.
It's not.
Those shoulders are too small for that head. Ooh. The body was in a different area than the head, But interestingly, the body was right in an empty lot in front of Nickel Plate Railroad Police Station. Like it was left there.
The head was left in front. That's ballsy.
This was just the body, sorry. The body was left in front of the police station.
Any part of a murdered person left in front of a police station is pretty ballsy.
So, and again, the body had been cleaned and drained of blood. Again, decapitation was the cause of death. And it turns out, I probably say this later, but they were figuring that the decapitation was the cause of death because they had completely bled out. So it had been one fell swoop too. A really clean decapitation. So.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh. That's how they were able to, and probably still alive while they'd been decapitated. That's why all the blood was gone from their body. I don't know.
Okay.
In spite of being able to pull fingerprints off of this victim, and despite him having like tattoos all over in a variety of places, really recognizable and unique ones, police weren't able to identify him, even on that, which is weird. I mean, at the time,
nobody wanted to claim him.
That
it's like, no, I don't know him. Mm-mm.
That dude had the runs in the run. A death mask was made of him out of plaster, along with a diagram of and descriptions of all of his tattoos. And they displayed it at the Great Lakes Exposition that year in 1936, where over 100,000 people saw the exhibit of the tattooed man.
Hey, kids, let's go see the body of the dead guy.
I know, but nobody could recognize him. So they were like hoping, like, somebody's got to know this guy. You know, it's got to lead to something. Nothing. So just after a month after the tattooed man was found in July of 1936, oh, this poor teen girl. She's out walking in some woods in the area, and she comes across a headless white male body in his late 30s to early 40s. Looked like the body had been dead for about 2 months.
Oh, God.
Yeah. When a search of the area was conducted, his head and a pile of blood-encrusted clothing was found nearby. And the clothing and area around it was so pooled with dried blood that they figured that had to be the spot where he had been killed.
Oh, my gosh.
Whereas no other bodies before were found in a kill zone or a kill spot.
Yeah.
They had all been dumped.
How many bodies are we up to
How many
now? Including zero.
I know. Let's include zero.
Including zero.
5 so far.
Dang,
yes.
That's a lot. Why are people still just walking? I wouldn't walk anywhere.
Well, they're all really poor that live down there, I think. I don't know. So in September of 1936, plus 30s, probably not everybody has a car yet. I don't know.
I just wouldn't leave my house then.
Yeah, just stay home. So in September of 1936, a hobo, is trying to hop a train in Kingsbury Run, and he's running and he trips over there. Because this is me. Trips over the upper half of a man's torso.
Oh, shit! Oh, no!
That'll derail your trip.
Oh, you didn't. No,
I did it.
You didn't.
I went there.
No, you didn't.
That poor guy. I think he missed that train. Investigators once again went on a scavenger hunt to find the rest of the body. They swept, this part. They swept a water basin, which basically was a large open sewer.
Oh.
Yeah. They're like, someone go investigate this? I don't want to be the one. There, they found the lower half of the torso and parts of both legs of this body that the transient man found.
Oh, gross.
And this one guy who probably thought he had the coolest job in the world as a diver. Yeah, no, not anymore.
No.
He was sent into the cesspool to recover the parts. Whew, he's probably like, I quit. I'm done with my career. I retire. I am done being a diver after this.
It's like when you get a job at Taco Bell and your first shift, they ask you to clean the bathroom and you're like, you know what?
Never mind.
This is not what I thought I was going to be doing.
I thought I was going to have tacos all day, every day. No. Whew. So this poor diver, but a crowd gathered to watch, of course, because that's what we do here. And it was estimated that over 600 looky-loos came to gawk while they're diving for body parts in the shit.
Oh my God. I wonder if they were more impressed by the body parts or by the guy that was diving into literal shit.
I know.
Or was it just the entire thing and they're just sitting there with their popcorn
just
like, oh my God.
Wow. If only I had such an invention as like a phone that recorded things, I would totally do that. And police probably, or believe that the killer was probably among those people just to come watch.
Oh, God.
The body was that of a 20-something, and cause of death was decapitation. And in this killing, the coroner noted that when the body was cut apart, it was done without hesitation marks, meaning it had been committed by someone familiar with human anatomy.
By this point, I would think so.
You would think they would know, right? They had gotten,
right?
Yeah, they'd gotten more skilled. The head had been removed in one clean stroke. Like many of the others, this victim was not identified. Would you want to be identified after knowing that your body was like,
oh my God, no,
in a cesspool? Thanks,
nope.
No, never mind. We'll just, no. That's when, turn me into a tree.
Turn me into a tree.
I want to be a tree. Oh, so at this point, okay, there's a killer out here. We know it's a serial killer. So the newspaper, no, not just one. The newspapers dubbed the killer the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run.
Ooh.
Yes, because he's butchering up people. And the press was having a field day with it, as they always do. Almost daily articles were published about the slayings, which further panicked the residents, of course.
Seriously.
Ooh, and here's a name we all know, Elliot Ness, the man who worked to take down Al Capone in the epic battle with gangsters in Chicago. He now lived in Cleveland. The mayor of Cleveland, Harold Burton, had recently appointed Elliot Ness as the public safety director for Cleveland due to his untouchable reputation.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah, untouchables. He had been appointed to try to transform the corrupt police department into a professional, well-reputed establishment.
That sounds like a big task.
Yeah, super big. So he was working on that, but as the murders were becoming such a persistent presence, the mayor is like, okay, Elliot.
I'm going to need you to take a pause on this over here.
That's right.
I kind of have a bigger problem over here.
We're getting a lot of press about this, and it's not looking good for us, so can you help out? Yep. To try to help push along the case, a meeting between police, the coroner, and other experts was set up to create a profile of the killer, and newspapers referred to the meeting as the Torso Clinic.
That's not even a good name.
No.
It's just
and I'm like,
weird.
God. They just were trying to sensationalize it even more.
I know. The meeting of the heads would have been better.
Oh, you should have been one. Meeting of the heads. Oh, you should have been there. Damn it.
I should have been there. Nobody asked me.
Nobody asked you. They failed. Two detectives, Peter Marilow and Martin Zalewski? Maybe it's Zalewski. We'll go with that.
Sure.
They were assigned to the case full-time, and they decided to kind of go undercover in the seedy dregs of the Run and the Roaring Third, dressing the part, and even working on their off hours to try to collect intel. I was like, yeah, that sounds like work.
Collect intel, little side cash, whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also, I have a photo of one of the guys dressed up as a hobo, and it's hilarious because it's just what you were describing. I don't know if they thought that's what it was and weren't, so there's a picture of him with a stick.
No, come on.
Yeah. A handkerchief at the end of the stick, and you're like, seriously, dude? I really don't. I think that was a cartoon. I don't know if that was really what they did. Maybe some guy did, and everyone's like, November elections rolled around, and even though the mayor retained his position, Cleveland voters appointed a new coroner. They're like, this guy's not finding shit. But
the coroner didn't do anything. By the time you call him in, it's kind of after the fact.
Late.
So let's get a better guy to identify the people that have already died.
Right.
That'll help.
Yeah, that'll help. Maybe. But anyway, they did find a legendary guy, or one who became legendary. His name was Sam Gerber.
Okay.
Sam was not only a physician, he was also a lawyer. Freaking overachiever. I was
How
like,
long was he in school?
Dude. I'm like, quit making the rest of us look bad. Just one thing is fine.
His
one good thing.
Loans must have been ridiculous.
I wonder if it was free back then.
Oh, yeah.
I doubt it. Anyway, all the former deaths we talked about before, they weren't the last of the victims of the Mad Butcher, unfortunately.
Holy cow.
I know, he just keeps going. So in February of 1937, the upper half of a woman's torso washed up on the shore of Bracknell, which is like a Shishi suburb of Cleveland on the shores of Lake Erie.
Oh, it's moving into the Shishi people's
neighborhood. It's moving in the Shishi
area.
area.
Well, they're not gonna stand for that.
Nope. Her cause of death was not decapitation. She'd been cut up after death.
Oh.
The lower half of her torso washed ashore 3 months later in another area.
Oh!
Yeah, and she also was never identified, but they were able to determine she was in her mid-20s, so a lot of young...
Did they at least give her a victim number, or did they throw her under 0, too?
I think they did. I just didn't put them all under numbers, because I was like, come on.
Just curious, because,
Yeah,
0.
at least she got... I know, poor victim 0. Nameless, sad, numberless, nameless.
Right.
Headless.
So,
in June of 1937... a teen boy found a severed human skull under the Lorraine Carnegie Bridge with a burlap bag next to it.
Don't look in the bag.
He looked at... I don't know if he did. Somebody looked in the bag.
Don't look in the bag. It's nothing good.
Oh, it's not. They had the skeletal remains of a black woman who had been about 40 at the time of her death. She was tentatively identified as Rose Wallace because of her dental work. But they tried to follow leads of her, and they came up with nothing. Like, tried to find out who she hung out with, all that kind of stuff, but still nothing. The next month after that, July of 1937, the National Guard, not the gar, that's a type of fish. The National National Guard had been deployed in the area, not because of the killings, but because of what was referred to as labor problems. I'm guessing they probably had some rioting or picketing going on.
Okay.
By unhappy workers or something. I don't know. A National Guardsman on watch on a bridge saw something float up in the wake churned up by a passing tugboat in the Cuyahoga River.
Nope, can't be a good thing.
Yep, I can just see it. It was a body part, and over the next few days, police were able to recover more of that same body, all except for the head.
Of course not.
Again,
of course not.
so many heads.
God.
Whew. The unidentified body of the victim, a mid to late 30s male, had been gutted and the heart removed.
Oh.
Boof.
We're getting more creative. We're
getting crazy down here.
Keeping different things.
I'm thinking so. I don't know. So a young labor worker on his way to work on the April day of 1938 was passing the banks of the Cuyahoga River, and something caught his eye. At first, he thought it was just a fish, but something about him made him go closer to inspect it.
Why are any of these people even, observing their surroundings anymore? I would be like a horse with blinders on going, nope,
I'm not looking. Don't want to know. Somebody else will find it.
Just going to work, not looking.
Wasn't a fish. It was the lower half of a woman's leg.
That would have made a big fish.
That was
a really big fish.
I got a good one. Never mind. Oh. So a month later, the police fished out 2 burlap bags from the river containing the torso and the rest of the legs of the victim. Coroner was able to find something that hadn't been present in the previous murders. The victim had drugs in her system, which brought up questions. Was this poor soul an addict, or had drugs been used to incapacitate her? Yeah, they were thinking maybe this is how they're getting this guy's getting these people to go with him. Unfortunately, those questions would remain unanswered since they never did recover her arms or her identity.
Oh, Jesus.
Poor lady. So her arms are out there somewhere.
They're out there somewhere? Oh, my God.
Along with a lot of heads. So the death seemed to carry on mercilessly when on August 16th of 1938...
It's like every other month.
It's insane, and they cannot catch this guy. So scrap collectors are out there. They're digging in a dump site. They find the torso of a female wrapped in a man's blazer that had then been wrapped in an old quilt. So this was someone trying to hide it,
That's weird.
Yeah, so once again, investigators and police descend upon the site, and they find a pretty new box, very recent, wrapped in butcher paper and secured with rubber bands, kind of like a present.
Oh, God.
Inside were arms and legs belonging to the torso the scrap collectors had found. The head was also found wrapped in the same way, just like a present in a different box.
What the hell?
Almost like they knew these guys would find it, and then they were like, oh, and here's this present. Oh, here's one more. Open them all.
Weird.
So weird. Coroner Gerber was able to determine that some of the body parts had been refrigerated at one point.
Okay.
So he'd been keeping them before putting them out there to be found.
Oh, God.
So while searching for more clues and or body parts, police found a second body just yards from this one.
Oh, my God.
What was most striking about the location of these bodies was that they had been placed in plain view from Elliot Ness's office window.
Oh!
Ooh, he knew who was investigating the lead. Can you imagine? That just gives me chills thinking someone's probably sitting there watching you while they're placing the bodies. You're inside the office.
Remember those victims who didn't, like, their balls were removed?
Oh, yes.
That's what this person's using?
Yeah.
To have the extra balls to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is ballsy.
Dang.
So both of these victims were also unidentified. So many. I mean, it was before the time of photographs half the time. Most people didn't even have that. So,
oh my God.
Just a couple of days later, on August 18th of 1938, Elliot Ness, along with a troop of 35 officers and detectives, go and raid the hobo jungles on the run.
Just raided them?
They raided them. Not just that. Okay, so the makeshift shacks are in a large cluster set up where the Cuyahoga River runs behind the public square.
Okay.
The raid gathered up 63 transients, took them away. Troops searched through everything they had, all the shanties, wondering if the killer could be a hobo. And then, by order of Elliot Ness, everything these transients had and their shacks were set on fire and turned to ashes.
How is any of this legal?
Yeah, it wasn't.
That's not, I mean, I get there's a,
Yeah, but not good. And it wasn't received well by the public. Peter Marilow, one of the lead investigators, thought that the torso murders clearly or closely resembled another dismemberment, and a few of these murders were also happening in Pennsylvania. So, like, other dismemberment murders that were taking place in Pennsylvania. So the thought that the killer could be hopping trains, that's where the hobo idea came from.
Okay.
So they're like, oh, we got to do this raid. Killer could be a transient. However, the coroner believed the killer had some medical training due to his precision with dismemberment. And he's like, yeah, let's not.
Well,
probably not a hobo.
You could go to medical school, and then
totally
still become a hobo at some point.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep. Become an addict of some sort.
Right.
Or maybe he's just getting really good at it since he's got so much experience. Who knows?
Well, right, exactly.
The burning of the shanty town caused outrage in the community, and it ended up ruining Elliot Ness's career.
Oh.
But something to note, the killings stopped after the raid.
Oh.
Ness claimed, in what I felt was kind of like a weak plea, that the raid had been done in part to get those most vulnerable to the killings off the streets and keep them safe. But where the hell are they going to go?
Yeah, I don't.
They're going to go back on the streets.
Yeah. They also have nothing, and the few things that they had, we burned.
Right. So probably not nice.
See, we saved them.
Right. No, I don't think that was right. So the hobo jungle residents, they all were fingerprinted, and Ness is like, oh, we did that to identify future casualties of the torso killer.
Again, I feel like this is very illegal.
super bad. This is not right. I know these days you would think they'd get a lot more trouble.
Any of these people could have afforded a lawyer.
Seriously. So in late 1938, police received a letter from someone claiming to be the torso killer. It read, quote, "You can rest easy now. I have come out to sunny California for the winter."
Oh.
The letter writer also proclaimed to have killed someone and buried the body in L.A., giving the exact area he had left the body. However, so they go to L.A. and they're looking for it and everything, but they never found the body where the writer said it was. So.
Interesting.
There was one man who had been arrested in suspicion of being the torso murderer. He was 52-year-old Bahamian bricklayer named Frank Dolezal, who had lived with the victim Flo Polillo, so the one that had been a waitress, brothel.
Oh, the triple job lady.
Yes, triple job lady. He had lived with her for a short while, and he had also been acquainted with Edward Andersey and Rose Wallace, two of the other victims of the butcher. But being the types of professions and interests they all had together and probably lived in the same areas,
it's probably not strange.
Wouldn't it make sense?
To know three of them.
Right. Frank did eventually confess to the murders, but it later turned out, shockingly, he suffered some physical coercion of some kind from police. It's basically they beat the shit out of him and he confessed.
Right. Well, because they've been doing everything on the up and up so far. So.
Yeah. They've been so reliable. Later, he recanted, and before Frank could go to trial, he was found dead in his cell. he had somehow, and so this is also seen as kind of like, was he killed or did he kill himself? Because he somehow hung himself from a hook that was 5 feet 7 inches from the floor, even though he was 5'8".
What?
So, yeah. Not the easiest thing to do to yourself. Oh, also, he's given an autopsy by Sam Gerber, the coroner, who had also examined all the victims of the butcher. And
he said it was also decapitation.
It would be hilarious. We'd be like, okay, you're fired. Never mind, you suck. No, he said Frank also had 6 broken ribs that had to have happened while in police custody.
Which would have happened from the fall.
Fall from an inch below his...
The negative inch fall.
Right. So he didn't think that it was suicide, apparently. Mm-hmm. Unbeknownst to the public, Elliot Ness had a suspect in mind that he was sure was the killer.
Oh, yeah?
This guy was Francis Sweeney. He's a doctor born of a prominent family in Cleveland, of whom Martin Sweeney, a congressman, was related to. Had to be real careful because it's related to some higher uppy echelon peeps. He thought he looked good for the killings. Sweeney was a heavy drinker whose wife said that he would become violent and disappear for days when on a bender. Mm-hmm. She was so afraid of him that she was able to get the court to grant her what sounds like the equivalent of a protection order in these days.
Oh.
Later, a divorce and full custody of her 2 sons, which...
Oh, and that's no easy
in that
feat.
time, was very, very rare. Sweeney was in and out of the Soldiers and Sailors home, which is, same as it's kind of a veterans home.
Okay.
For a couple of years. And in March of 1938, a dog walked into the Soldiers and Sailors home with a severed human leg in its mouth.
Oh, shit.
Whoops. Did I leave that out there?
Oh.
Whoop. That wasn't supposed to come back home, Fido. Put that back out there.
I said, don't fetch. Don't fetch.
Leave it.
Right.
Oof. So prior to the veterans home matter, Ness was also made aware of an incident a man named Emil Fronick had in Cleveland in November of 1934, where he's walking down the street. He's probably a transient. A physician beckoned him inside, offering him some shoes because he had none.
Wait. Come here. I got you some shoes. Trust me, I'm a doctor.
What? Come on in. Yeah. So he said, okay, he goes in and he's like, before I could give you the shoes, you need to have something to eat. Let's let you get you something to eat. So the doctor brings out meat and potatoes along with some hot coffees. Emil's like, sweet, starts eating. But while eating the food, he starts to get super woozy and feeling sick. And he's like, whoo, something's up, and he really believed he was being poisoned. So he freaking bolted, ran out the door. I don't think he got shoes, which I don't know. But he made it to a boxcar before passing out. And he was woken 3 days later by transients.
Holy shit. 3 days.
3 days. So that shit knocked him out, whatever it was. He reported the incident to the police, and investigators had him take them back to where he thought he had met the doctor. So they're walking the streets. So this guy's not a resident of Cleveland. In fact, he lived in Chicago.
Okay.
And Emil's like, I don't really quite remember everywhere. He was probably drunk, too, at the time.
Well, yeah.
But he took officials to where he thought the assault had occurred, but he couldn't point out the exact building. But interestingly, Francis Sweeney, the guy that Ness thought was good for it, he shared a medical building with another doctor in the exact area Emil took them to. Ooh. Yes! In fact, Ness believed so strongly that Francis Sweeney was his man, so this is another super illegal thing. He kidnaps Sweeney.
You can't do that! He it had to be trained, right? Like he was a police officer, yes? I mean, you can't.
He was the safety director? I don't know, but I guess in Chicago he was, so he's had experience. So he goes and kidnaps Francis Sweeney, takes him to a hotel, and he questions him for weeks.
What?
And he gives him one of the very first polygraph tests with the actual inventor himself of the polygraph machine.
Are you serious?
And the polygrapher is like, This shows without a doubt Sweeney is our man. But it's inadmissible because he kidnapped the dude, and polygraphs aren't even admissible now. They weren't even known then.
Let me just list the ways of why this is not admissible.
Why are you even doing this? You can't even do anything.
God.
So he was hoping he would persuade Sweeney to confess, but of course he wouldn't. And without any evidence, he had to release him. So for years, Ness received taunting postcards from Sweeney. Years and years of this. And I don't think the public knew for many, many decades about Francis Sweeney being a suspect, because there were a lot of references in the news to it likely being a doctor, but not knowing who it was at all. A writer named James Badal, he's the now foremost expert on the Torso murders case. He's written 3 books on it. He's the one who kind of unearthed all the documents of Ness's and was able to find all this information. And he is sure that Sweeney had to be the dude too.
Really?
And yeah, there were other suspects, one of whom I mentioned who hung himself in air quotes.
Right.
And another was, you'll like this name, Willie Johnson. And it wasn't William, it was Willie.
It was
Willie Johnson. So this guy, I mean, he seems like the suspect because he had actually been caught while dumping a dismembered woman in Kingsbury Run in 1942.
Well,
yeah, so it looked like this is the guy, but he was convicted of that murder, and though he was sentenced to death, he swore up and down, I did not do the others. This was my only one. And he was executed 2 years later. I mean, they went through it fast. They're like,
wow.
Whew. In 1947, the now disgraced Elliot Ness, he tried to run for mayor of Cleveland, but he lost. Shocker. This is interesting. That same year, Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, was found cut in half and drained of her blood in L.A.
In L.A., yes.
So her murder was so similar to the Torso murders that many believed she had been another victim of the killer.
And I believe they think that she was killed by a doctor.
Yep. And, they got that note that said he'd gone to L.A. or gone to sunny California.
Right.
Uh-huh. Interesting. Anyway.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. Despite his failure to make a definitive arrest of the Torso murder, Ness had made really good strides in the police department outside of the Torso murders. He cleaned up the police.
Really? After the whole hobo incident?
I know. He's part of the corruption.
Hotel?
Right. He's like, whoops, I better do my job now. Whoops.
Oh my God.
He got rid of everyone else that was corrupt, just not himself. But through his work, background checks are now done on police officers before they become police officers. So he brought something good to it.
That's good.
But in the end, more than 1,500 men had been questioned, and it was the largest police investigation in Cleveland history. 600 of them are probably transients from that, but it's never been solved.
So we don't have the heads?
Don't have the heads. I don't think they ever found them. Who knows? They're probably at the bottom of Lake Erie. Maybe you should head over there. You're closer than I am.
I'm not going to head anywhere. Get a diver.
Oh, yeah. We know someone. He's been in a cesspool. He's probably died a year later.
I promise this will be much better. Okay? At least the water isn't.
It might be murky. There might be some body parts.
Exactly.
But it's not full of shit. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it is.
God. Oh my gosh.
I know. Do you want to hear my sources?
I would love to hear your sources. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. And there's a bunch of books out there about it too, but I didn't have time to read all those. So clevelandpolicemuseum.org. Some great photos out of that.
I like your face when you say that. Some great photos.
This is the time when they didn't censor their photos. So
there's
they got
no nice
photos
little
of the
black
heads.
box over it.
Nope, they got the heads. They got body parts. It's
Yikes.
Another is cleveland.com, case.edu, mentalfloss.com, thecleo.com, historyofyesterday.com, in an article called Elliot Ness's Pursuit of the Cleveland Torso Murder by C.S. Fall, clevelandmagazine.com, and in that one there was an article called Case Closed, ? By Eric Tricky. He had interviewed that writer who is the expert on all of it, so who thinks that it's definitely going to be Sweeney. Sweeney! Yeah. Oh, and I also wanted to mention how we loved hearing from our patrons and the things they'd like as being part of their, as our loyal subscribers.
Yes.
And they were so sweet.
Yes, so sweet.
We appreciate you.
And we'll be very, very much do.
Oh my God, yes. And we'll be sending out a Merry Murdery holiday gift for them.
Yes.
So if you want in on that, you should sign up now.
Yeah. I'm all right.
I was also going to tell everybody to be sure to send us an email or a DM to our socials about a true crime in their area or something that was close to them or places they've lived before that intrigued them.
Totally.
Some murder case, because I would love to hear about where they were, what they were doing, all that kind of stuff from their perspective.
Well, we've had people comment that they're like, oh, I'm so glad you covered this case because, like, I knew it, but because I lived over there, but, like, I didn't actually know all the details. Yeah. So, like, if there's a case that you know about, and the weirder the better. Like,
right. Love the weird shit, obviously.
We would love to look.
Yes.
We would love to look that up. Doesn't even have to be out of Florida.
No.
But we're not opposed.
We're not opposed. We can always take Florida. Yes. Oh, and if you hate typing out, if you do have like a story about it from your own perspective, you don't have to type it out. You can do voice to text. You can do that shit in DM. Just do it.
You can.
We want to hear from you. Yeah. We'll come back next week. Now that we're back for season 6.
We're back. It's season 6.
Woo! Holy balls. That's a lot.
I know it is.
It's cool.
It really is. But
thanks for hanging with us.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
And review us if you can, if you have time.
Yes, we just got an awesome new review on Apple Podcasts, and that was awesome. And it just, oh my God, it totally made our day. That was such a great review. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Anyway,
see you
thanks,
next
everybody.
week.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Hey, Oddies. Thanks for listening to another episode of ODFM. If you're a longtime listener, hey, we cannot thank you enough for your continued support. And if you're a new listener, thanks for giving us a try. If you like us, please drop us a like, subscribe, or rate us so we can share our stories with more people around the world. And if you'd like more information, like links to our podcast and socials, along with our Patreon fan page, those links are all on Linktree under ODFM Podcast. That's linktr.ee/ODFM Podcast. Side note, you guys, we're obsessed with fan art, and we love making things with it, like stickers for our fans. So if you'd like us to use your designs, send it to us at odfmpodcast@gmail.com. And if we use your design, we'll be sure to send you a sticker.
Thanks for listening to another episode of ODFM, hosted by Kelly DeVries and Jenna Swanson. Production and editing by Kelly DeVries. Theme music by Eric Swanson. ODFM is a satirical true crime podcast for entertainment purposes only. The stories you hear are serious and true. The comments and opinions are not. We apologize if any of our content is harmful or disrespectful.